Alphabet, the owner of Google, just crushed expectations in its Q1 update, driven by AI, YouTube and the cloud, but concerns around regulation and search revenue still linger. So what does the future hold for Alphabet? To discuss this, let's head to Florida. We're joined by market analyst Brad Gastwirth from Unearthing Opportunities. Great to see you.
Good to be here, Aaron.
All right, talk to us about what stood out for you the most from Alphabet's Q1 report.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube growth was solid. If you look at subscriptions continue to go up into the right, advertising continues to be quite strong on that platform. AI related, it's hard to really look at the monetization there, but overall subscriptions, which include AI, which include all of their platform, is over 270 million now. It's a crazy number, but they're really executing on all cylinders. It was hard to find something negative from the report. Operating margins went to the mid-30s. It's quite strong. That's up from the low 30s previously, and I think you're going to see operating margin expansion, and I think that's what gets people excited about still owning the stock.
It's interesting you talk about YouTube. It feels like it's really having a moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the hiccup we've seen with TikTok, just because of ownership, especially here in the States, I mean, YouTube is one of the beneficiaries. I mean, Meta, along with YouTube, has really gained some share on the short form video platforms, and they're benefiting from it. But I mean, YouTube has always been a phenomenal asset for Alphabet, and they've been performing quite well, and they still have a tremendous amount of monetization with ad growth, well ahead of itself. So I think you're going to see ad growth continue to perform well there. I think YouTube is not over by any means.
I love talking AI. So Alphabet and obviously Google, they've got all sorts of products when it comes to AI, but have they been seen as the leader, and are they leading monetizing AI products?
Yeah, it's a really good point and question here, Aaron. I mean, look at Gemini 2.5, which is their sort of latest model. It's pretty strong. I mean, it's definitely competitive. I mean, is it the best out there? I would say it's probably in the top 3, but in terms of are they able to monetize it, they're really integrating it incredibly well with their suite of products. If you look at Google Docs and Sheets, you're able to do some really unique and neat things rather quickly with AI. Just on Gmail, if you're a pro user, you get the enhancement of AI in your email. But I mean, are they monetizing it separately? They are. It's not like a ChatGPT, OpenAI, where you're getting $20 a month just for that AI service. But because they're integrating it with their host of products, it's almost like how the Microsoft is doing it as, it's a small add-on overall. For Google, you're seeing some of the enterprise and pro platforms integrating it, and I think that's benefiting the company.
It's really interesting, the term monetizing, right? Because there's so many different ways you can look at monetizing. One is the product you have, is it able to monetize, as in can you sell it? But what we saw last year when OpenAI really came to the fore, and it really had an impact on Google, on Alphabet, because people were worried about the future of Google search. The only time I personally ever see Gemini is if I Google something and it gives me the Gemini result up the top, which is really handy, but I do wonder whether it's going to lead to big problems, because it's clearly searching all of the articles, preventing me from clicking on things that then take it to links. We're already hearing from the news industry, particularly in America, that it's having a pretty major impact on people clicking on links. They're just using, I guess, Google's AI product instead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the trillion-dollar question here, Aaron, is what's going to happen with search as AI continues to proliferate. And I don't think it's going to have a major impact here in the near term. It's something we have to pay attention to on a longer term basis. I don't think the dynamics changing that quickly just yet, but I mean, we have to pay attention to behaviors. Are people going to go less to sites and look at summaries from Gemini or even just go to ChatGPT? But ultimately, I see the AI function across the board. I mean, even just using maps, using, searching in for restaurants, if you're trying to Google something, it's popping up right away. But I mean, surprisingly, their ad revenue went up and had a nice move. So, currently it's not having an impact, and it'll be interesting to see if it will. I mean, OpenAI is probably one of the biggest risks if all of a sudden people use ChatGPT to, displace search. Now, that's been talked about from the very beginning, and now we're about 2 years in, and it really hasn't had any real major disruption. But I mean, absolutely the most important is to watch, because, if it does, that's a big hit to Alphabet for sure.
Yeah, well, let's have a listen now to the CEO of Google, of Alphabet.
Right. AI is one of the most profound things we are working on as humanity. It's more profound than fire or electricity or any of the other bigger things we have worked on. It has tremendous positive.
All right, when you hear stuff like that, profound messaging, do you think that's for shareholders or consumers?
I think it's probably a little bit of both there, Aaron. I think there's a lot of positioning, and I'd even say for a little politically as well. But ultimately, I think, in terms of just the general public, we're still in its infancy on using AI, just in mainstream. And we're going to, every year, we're going to get more and more enhancements, but it's still not even scratching the surface of what its capabilities are. I think when you see more integrations from everyday life to everyday business, that's when it's going to take a bigger, impact. And yeah, I mean, there's some really big things to watch on humanitarian perspective. I mean, is it, what's the disruption, at what cost, and who's going to police it, et cetera. But ultimately, I mean, it's really efficient. It's helping companies become more efficient. It's helping companies' financials because of those efficiencies. And I think ultimately it's a good thing for businesses here in the near term.
Let's talk about advertisers. Are they really worried about AI search cannibalizing, I guess, clicks?
Absolutely. I think there's a big concern on the advertising front, and it's really just it's using, non-traditional methods to find results of things you need. So if all of a sudden people are using AI instead of just traditional search, there's definitely an impact to traditional advertising on search. But again, what we just saw from this last quarter is that it didn't have that impact. But absolutely, and I think it's really an important thing to pay attention to, because if it does, again, this is major. I mean, it really would have to be good.
Let's talk about the cloud, Google Cloud. Do you think it can ever catch up with AWS in particular? Because the whole world seems to be powered by AWS. We saw that when they go down, so too the airports, so do so many things. Do you think Google Cloud will be there? Because it seems to be such a massive growth area.
I think it'll still be there. Will it become the #1 cloud service provider? I don't think so. I think AWS has its foot in the door unless they really screw up something. I think it's really they're going to stay #1 for quite some time. But I think Google's in a good 2-3 spot with. If you look at Microsoft Azure, I mean, Microsoft's cloud platform is quite strong too. But ultimately, it comes down to, if you're running your business and you're a small, medium, or even large enterprise, some people want to have that cloud hosted on the provider that they're using the most. So if you're a Google shop, you're using Google. If you're a Microsoft shop, you're using Azure. If you want to be independent, you're using AWS. And then the reality is everybody's having duplicates and triplicates. So even the largest corporations have backups on this too.
Yeah, now Alphabet, obviously, big regulatory hurdle, big threat that it may be broken up as well, particularly when we look at Chrome. This takes us back to what happened to Microsoft in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was always in the crosshairs. The better it did, the bigger a target it became for regulators. But what does this mean in the Trump White House? Because this isn't a normal White House, obviously. Do you think that it's still a buy?
Yeah, so I think the stock is very fairly priced, and I think there's a lot of upside in the next several years. I think this year in particular is going to be a little bit volatile with with tariffs going to be first digested, et cetera. But I do ultimately look at Google or Alphabet and see the valuation is quite attractive on a historical basis. So I think the stock is it's not overvalued by any means in terms of what's this typical White House or a typical government for us and what's going to happen. I don't think you're going to see any type of big tech being broken up anytime in the near future with the Trump presidency. I think that he's more he's focused on other things right now. I don't think big tech breakup is one of them. But ultimately, if you look at the largest companies in the world, and Amazon and Alphabet, Meta, but let's just pick on Alphabet and Amazon. The sum of the parts are actually probably worth more than the combined entities at this current juncture. So if you look at YouTube as a standalone, you look at cloud services, you look at their traditional search. I mean, each of these businesses are behemoths. And Amazon, you have their marketplace, you have logistics. I mean, I do think at some point they get too big. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but I don't think it's actually a negative catalyst. I see it as a positive catalyst.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Brad Gastwirth, appreciate your time as we unpack Alphabet.
Perfect. Thanks, Aaron.